Welcome to IABC Today, the podcast of the Kansas City chapter of the International Association of Business Communicators. I'm your host, Roy Harriman.
Our guest today is Mike Goff, Chief Marketing Officer at Premier Sports Management, and he will be speaking on connecting brands and consumers through lifestyle marketing at our Thursday, January 17th lunch at Brio on the Plaza. Mike, welcome, and Happy New Year to you.
Well, thank you. Happy New Year to you as well.
I also want to mention that Mike is IABC's Arthur Lowell honoree, and that means he's earned our highest honor among business communicators here in Kansas City, so we're delighted to have him here and serving in that role as well. And as I mentioned, Mike is going to be talking about lifestyle marketing, but there is a fascinating backstory to this topic, and that is Mike's work at his former employer, Sprint, and how he led Sprint's efforts to capitalize on the World Cup, which is the world's largest sporting event in Sprint's international and domestic marketing efforts. But Mike, before we go there, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at Premier Sports Management and what the company does?
Sure. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Premier, which is a local Kansas City-based sports and entertainment marketing company that utilizes lifestyle marketing to try to link brands up with their consumers, both current customers as well as potentially new consumers, trying to tap into the passions that consumers have for sports and entertainment and other sort of even cause-related kinds of activities.
Excellent. And you just mentioned, again, you're going to be talking about lifestyle marketing. Can you define that term for us?
Yeah, I think lifestyle marketing, there are a variety of terms, but the way that we look at it is trying to marry up a brand with consumers who are interested in something relative to their lifestyle, whether it's watching sports, whether it's participating in sports, whether it's some sort of entertainment, again, whether it's participatory or simply viewing it to a cause that the consumer might have a special, sort of avidness for. So it's really trying to tap into consumer lifestyles and put brands married up against the right, consumer targets in that particular area.
Yeah, so it's bridging basically natural interests between the marketer and the person out there who's leaving
well said
about products or services. Okay. Well, since we only have a few minutes on this podcast, I know we can only whet our listeners' appetites, which is great because I know they're going to want to hear the whole story, and so am I. But as you're looking back at your unique work on the World Cup with Sprint, what would you say would be one lesson that you learned during that process that every marketer can apply, whether they're in business to business as an agency or at a large company like Sprint, for example?
I think probably the most important lesson learned was not to let your own personal bias get in the way of the end game. So in other words, I was unfamiliar with the strength of World Cup worldwide, the hold that it had on consumers worldwide, the popularity of soccer, which is called football, of course, outside of the U.S.
Sure.
Worldwide. And so, I went in with, again, a bias that was quickly overcome. It was immediate, just, how big this particular event is and the hold that it has on consumers worldwide.
So you, for example, it sounds like what you're saying, were not like a soccer aficionado, and you were wading into this and not really fully understanding the fanatical fan base there is for the sport around the world.
True. I was not a fan, and my exposure to soccer was through, a son who played, and so I was, getting immersed in the power of youth soccer in the U.S., but, that even pales in comparison, again, to just the passion that international consumers have for, the World Cup, which happens every 4 years. And so as I got more deeply immersed in it, it just became, readily apparent that we had just an amazing, property that Sprint was involved with.
That's an excellent example. So we're wading into whatever campaign or project it is. It can sometimes be difficult to set aside biases that maybe we don't even know we have about a particular topic or maybe even a way of communicating.
Yeah, I think it's important to come at it as fact-based as possible, and obviously have as much research that you can get your hands on, both secondary as well as obviously primary, to try to help better understand what it is about the property or the partnership that gets consumers jazzed up. And as a quick example, one of the things that an anecdote that made it readily apparent to me is we brought the World Cup trophy to Sprint headquarters and allowed employees to get their picture taken with it, and we literally had some employees who were crying just because of how moved they were to finally touch, the trophy, which was something that they had throughout their life, witnessed every 4 years with their home country, wanting to capture the World Cup trophy. So it was just kind of an amazing moment that just reinforced how big of a world phenomenon that the World Cup really is.
Yeah, that is some serious passion. If you have employees, in a sense, weeping with joy over being able to be photographed with the World Cup. So yeah, it sounds like a great eye-opening experience. Now, I'm curious also, did your exposure into worldwide sports, did that at all help kind of form the factual knowledge base that you have that's brought you to your current position where you're dealing with sports issues much more frequently?
It certainly did. The World Cup was such a, almost a once in a lifetime kind of experience, and it came about in an interesting way in the sense that the company had, cut the deal with the World Cup organizing committee, and they needed somebody to lead the sponsorship, and came to me, and I wasn't sure what I was getting into, but whether it was stupidly or fortuitously said yes, and that initial involvement in sports marketing then sort of led the way into a variety of different sports and entertainment partnerships that I was a part of, and that is really why I wanted to get back into that kind of world of lifestyle marketing, and what's led me here to Premier Sports. So it's funny sometimes how a career decision can lead you into such an interesting place.
I can't wait to hear the full story. And before we wrap up here, Mike, could you give us maybe just a brief snapshot of one other insight related to the whole World Cup project that you'll be sharing that you think our listeners are going to benefit from on the 17th?
Sure. I think, whether it's myth or reality, it's sometimes hard to quantify just what, involvement in lifestyle marketing means to a brand. So it's, I think, very, very important to not only on the front end, again, put aside personal biases and know what you're getting into and know, what sort of consumer insight you're trying to tap into, but then on the back end, to make sure that you've got, truly a roadmap for how you're going to gauge success. What are the key performance indicators? What are you going to gain agreement from senior management that you can look back on after the fact, after the investment has been made, to try to determine truly what the return on that investment was. It sounds perhaps a little bit elementary, but I do think sometimes people get caught up in the sexiness of sports and entertainment marketing and don't do a good job of rigorously trying to determine, what exactly did they achieve, quantifiably as a result of the investment.
Sure, that part's not near as fun as the launching of the campaign and the euphoria of it all, but at the end of the day, if we still want to be able to show up to work, we have to be able to show that what we did made sense. So, excellent thoughts. Well, just a closing reminder that you can hear more from Mike on Thursday, January 17th at lunch at Brio, and you can register at kc.iabc.com or simply look at the link in this podcast's description. Mike, thank you for spending a little time with KC/IABC today.
Thanks, Roy.
Thanks for joining us for KC/IABC Today. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes as well as our YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to receive automatic updates on both. Learn more about us at kc.iabc.com. Thanks again.